So recall that we talked about organizations behaving naturally over time, and we talked about the best organizations over time on average degrade in performance, and the worst organizations over time improve in performance or they go bust altogether. Well, that's the averages of the performance. There's a couple of guys that have been studying for years organizations that do very, very well at the beginning, at one snapshot in time, and then continue to do very, very well in the future. And they study those organizations and they try to figure out what is it that allows organizations to actually have and accomplish a sustainable competitive advantage. Jim Collins, Jerry Porras have kind of made a cottage industry of writing books about these great companies. Built to Last was one of the first books that they wrote. Good to Great is one of their most popular. In fact, it's the most popular business book of all time. It overtook In Search of Excellence by Tom Peters about 10 years ago as the most popular business book of all times. But what's nice about these studies that they do and that they document within these books is that they study great companies and they try to figure out what are some of the common characteristics of great companies with sustainable competitive advantages. If you have not read any in the series that they've written, I strongly suggest that you get a copy of Good to Great and take a read of it. It's chock full of little tidbits and nuggets about what it takes to run a great company. A couple of findings from all of their studies that I'd like you to reflect upon as you go through this competition. First of all, one finding was that they found that alignment was extremely important in the running of a great company, and they underestimated the importance of alignment. Now, when you first heard the concept of business alignment, you got to ask yourself, what does that mean? Well, business alignment is nothing more than setting your objectives and goals for your organization and then having conversations and discussions about how well our organization is aligned to those objectives and goals. There's the concept of internal strategic alignment, where you want to make sure that the things inside the company are aligned with those objectives and goals. Because if I have set objectives and goals, but I don't have the right people in place, if they don't have the right skills, if I have not invested in the correct technology, if I'm not developing, if I'm not paying them properly to reward the behavior that I want, if there's a misalignment and we're doing something inside the company that does not support those objectives and goals 100%, then we're not going to perform probably as well as an organization that has better internal alignment. That's one type of alignment. Second type of alignment is external strategic alignment. Let's make sure that those goals and objectives that we've articulated, let's make sure that those goals and objectives actually are aligned with the stuff that is outside of our control, with the external realities. So if we've set objectives and goals, let's make sure that the customers value the objectives and goals that we've established. Let's make sure that the regulators will allow us to pursue the objectives and goals. Let's make sure that the competitive landscape is aligned with the objectives and goals that we've established. So having these conversations is very important. In the beginning rounds of running this competition, you're going to find that some of the decision making will be very, very frustrating because one, you have not established objectives and goals yet as a team for this fictional manufacturing company that you're running, and two, you don't have any alignment yet. Once you start to have alignment within your management team, decision making and conversations become a lot better and a lot easier. So embrace that uncomfortable feeling at the beginning and just recognize it's because of that lack of focus and that lack of alignment itself. There's an article, McKinsey Quarterly publishes an article, obviously quarterly, and they commented on the importance of alignment. They said, one thing we've seen over and over again is that many organizations struggle with strategic alignment. Even at the healthiest companies, they have a way to measure the health of an organization. About 25% of the employees are unclear about their company's direction. So that's at healthy companies. That figure rises to 60% for organizations with poor organizational health goals. So imagine if you're in an unhealthy organization, I've got 6 of 10 people that really don't know what the goals of the organization are. So you could have 4 people making the right decisions and 6 people making the wrong decisions, and you're not going to make progress towards what your ultimate objectives and goals are. So think about alignment. It's very important, and it comes out within the simulation. Number 2 finding from Built to Last and Good to Great is that leadership is very key. And they found that great companies are run by great leaders. Well, that's not rocket science. And in fact, that statement doesn't necessarily really teach you a whole lot. But what it should ask you to do, what it should perhaps hint that you do is that you better understand exactly what is leadership. What is leadership versus management? One of the pre-reads that we had for this class is What Leaders Really Do by John Kotter. And there are 100, if not 1,000 folks that are studying leadership and are trying to identify a definition for leadership. So pick one that you like. I tend to like John Kotter because the way he positions it, leadership is not better than management. They both are required in order to run a successful organization for the long term. And I like the way he defines leadership versus management. He talks about leadership being in the mode of thought of trying to cope with change. That's the right change at the right time. Management, on the other hand, is trying to cope with complexity, trying to get the job done and trying to deal with the day-to-day things. When you're in management mode, it's more shorter term in terms of your thinking process. Leadership mode, you're longer term. Management mode, you're more risk averse. Leadership mode, you're seeking more risk because you're trying to drive that change. The other way we've heard it differentiated is that leadership is about being on the business and management is about being in the business. You need to take both of these perspectives in order to be successful. So as you structure your decision making each week, make sure that you're allocating enough time to leadership thinking, on the business thinking, as well as to management thinking and the in the business thinking. In the beginning of this competition, you're probably going to need a whole lot more on the leadership side because you really need to drive some change into these organizations that you're building. And then as the competition goes on and you've driven a lot of change in, then perhaps it's going to become even more intense on the management side because now you kind of make sure that you're doing things efficiently and effectively and you're running the organization as best as you can. So leadership versus management. So concentrate and think about over these weeks of the competition the concept of alignment and the differences between being in management mode versus being in leadership mode. You need to be in both modes.